Welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. This month, we are talking about healing our communities. Margaret Wheatley says it this way: there is no power for change greater than the community discovering what it cares about. What do we care about? A lot of times may dictate how we care for each other. Today, we have a new guest. His name is, Rabbi, Alfredo Borodowski. I'm really bad at. Is that close or not?
Close enough.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight. A lot of times when we think about, community and healing, it's just holistic as just when we think about our health in general. How do we heal, like physically, connects with our minds and mental health and everything else. I just want to appreciate anyone coming on and sharing because there's a lot of changes, last few years for a lot of people. It's been a lot of changes. I just appreciate us continuing the dialogue. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to meet you.
Disclaimer for those in the States, 988 just started as a crisis hotline. If you're outside the state, I do encourage you to find what resources look different for each and every one of us. American football is coming up, and there's one quote that one of the former NFL players said. He says, "When I first heard the term mental health, the first thing that came to mind was mental toughness, masking pain, hiding it." And then he goes on and saying, "Keeping it inside that has been embedded in me since I was a kid. Never show weakness. Suck it up. Play through it. Live through it. Now I realize that mental health means the total opposite." This is from Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall he played for several teams, but he 13 seasons in the NFL. But it's inspiring a lot of times that stigma, that kind of perceived notion that I need to put my best face forward without really addressing. When you hear this quote or this kind of journey that Brandon shares with us, what comes to mind with you when you hear this?
First, I feel a little sadness.
Yeah.
Really a deep sadness, because I can feel the pain for somebody who basically pretends to be strong when that person needs empathy, needs connection, and through the cracks, light can shine. So many people with mental illness live in isolation.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that the common citizen doesn't know, that people with mental illness, they become afraid to be in society. They spend more and more hours in the rooms, in loneliness, in existential despair.
Yes.
Then I think that dialogue and opportunities for people to express their mental illness are beneficial for all, and it's happening because every day you read a famous person who comes out of the mental illness closet and shares it with the world with pride.
Yeah.
And you look at my website. On top of the website is written "From Stigma to Dignity."
Yeah.
Okay. Then that's what I am. My mission to move from stigma to dignity. I am Rabbi Alfredo. The last name is Borodowski, but I also known as the bipolar rabbi because I have a bipolar, and I am Jewish, but coming from a Hispanic background from Argentina.
Yeah.
We were taught to be machos.
Yeah. Machisto. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, then you're not a macho, you're not right.
Yeah.
And what we learn from studies that being vulnerable and having a safe place given by the society, friends and families and communities to show vulnerability is really the path to healing.
I love that you say that. A lot of support groups I've been to, I've facilitated myself. You'll have people who share in those safe places something that's really tragic for them, and you may see that if you're looking outside in, you're like, well, nothing tangibly is changing with their lives, but they feel better, and a lot of times they do better. They start connecting because there's different resources, and support comes in different ways. There's tangible support, there's emotional support, there's social needs that a lot of times people don't think they are needs. So I do appreciate what you're sharing with us today. So,
I had a chance of Robert. I had a chance of living in different countries, and one thing that I discovered is that my conversation with people in other countries, like in Argentina, Europe, and Israel, and my conversation with people here in the States, the conversations are different.
Okay.
And I tell you how. There is a more existential, direct, and honest and open channel of communication in other countries. You meet with somebody for coffee and tell you all the problems. They tell you how much money they make. It's like they pour their heart out. They're existential encounters. I find that here in America, we need to work a little bit at that. We are kind of a utilitarian society, and conversations are more about what can I get out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to work a little bit harder on the human encounter. We are very guarded.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a merciless society. You say the wrong thing, you're finished. And then everybody is guarded and afraid. And when we talk about mental illness, we need to create an environment where people can express who they are without fear of and to have direct communication at the human level, and know that everything that we do in our society is about gain. It's about how I look. Come on, let's be fully human to each other.
Yeah, and I feel that that when we are able to, I don't know, put value, when we say, oh, I value things, a lot of times, like you say, in the United States, it's things you could tangibly see, but what I a lot of times see is there's no value in boundaries or spending time with those you love, or even self-care, insight. Well, why am I doing this? Never asking yourself, why do I continue to struggle in this regard or that regard? It's all about, well, I need to get fixed today, quickly. And a lot of times I feel, I don't know, I'm just sharing with you, is that they don't take enough time to go through the process of insight and learning about, well, this is something I've been struggling with for 5-10 years. It's not going to be shaved off in 1 month or something quick and fast. I think that journey a lot of times doesn't get emphasized enough. It's like, well, I need to get better now and like yesterday. What do you say to something like that when people are in such an urgency? I see that a lot of times, especially in working the field too. What do you see, and what has helped?
Well, I am a coach for people with mental health challenges, and I work with them, and I belong to the school of what is called positive psychology. It's a school that developed in the last 20 years, and differently from traditional psychology, it dwells on the strength of people. We move from trauma, although trauma is important to address, but the focus is on the strength.
Yeah.
And once you begin exploring how we are strong, there is a paradigm shift. People transition from a view of themselves of weakness to a view of what can I do with my strengths. There are studies that show that 2/3 of people cannot name their own strengths.
Yeah.
And there are studies that show that by knowing your strength, not by applying, just by knowing them, they did a very large study in New Zealand, that just by knowing your strength, you have 9 times more chances of flourishing. Then when you move to the domain of positive psychology, and the language and the paradigm is about what the strengths are, actually, Robert, we have quicker results. Okay, quicker results, because we move into goals. I tell you, when people discover and we see their strengths, the next logical question is, what do I do with them?
Yeah.
Then that's what I do. I'm a social worker. I go to therapy myself, and I love psychoanalysis for myself. But positive psychology, the psychology of strengths, has actually, I would say, saved my life.
Yeah.
And I've seen the results when I work with people. They discover the strengths. It's a great gift.
Yeah. And I work in the same field. I'm a case manager myself. I work with clients, and one thing, the strength-based approach is, I find a lot more. It comes to the root. It empowers the individual to hopefully get to the point of, I would say, self-advocacy, when they advocate for themselves because they found, I am worthwhile, and they built this. But this stuff takes time. But I do like the strength-based approach, opposed to just, what do I just pointing at each symptom or every single occurrence that they're going through one by one, just looking at what are their strengths and what objectives can they reach to build on. And I feel that has been, at least for my line of work and the people I work with, it's been highly inspiring, because I get excited when someone does one, even the smallest objective, when something was a struggle. And I feel a lot of times with mental health, we don't say it as it is. It's messy at times. We're complicated people, but the reason we do it is simple. We do it because of the people we love, people we care about, people we want to still see here tomorrow. Let's say Hunter S. Thompson says, "Who is the happier man? He who has braved the storm of life and lived, or he who has stayed securely on shore and merely existed?" I think the trend, the what we're talking about is the transition to living versus existing. There's more, and building on people's strengths in that regard.
Coming from the Jewish tradition and being a rabbi, it is very interesting that, generally speaking, because every religion has different opinions, but generally speaking, Judaism does not believe on suffering as a path to spiritual growth. Okay, there are other traditions where suffering is central, and actually suffering is redeeming. That's not the Jewish position. We don't see the value of suffering in itself. But what I can say is that once suffering occurs, because it's unavoidable, then you have to make meaning out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then there is a story in this in the Jewish sources where a rabbi was very sick, and another rabbi went to visit him. And and the rabbi says, trying to comfort, I hope that your sufferings are good to you. And the other rabbi said, "Hey, stop! I don't want these sufferings." Okay, it's a very famous. It's a very famous. Then I am in the position of we must grow out of suffering. But again, going to positive psychology, we have to rely on the positive. The positive, the strength is the leading force.
Yeah.
The strength and the power and the flourishing and the potential are the leading force if we want to get out of depression.
Yeah. And I agree. When it comes to, we don't seek out, for at least me, I don't seek out the pain. I don't feel that is, this is the only way. But I feel sometimes we do have to experience some discomfort, because some of the questions, some of the insight that we're coming to, maybe something we haven't even took the time to
But Robert, the discomfort is a given.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a given. We have a mental illness.
Exactly.
It's not fun. Okay, it's not fun. Then that is not fun, and that we are suffering, and we have pain, and we have a tough life, are a given.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the question is, what strength, what hope, what potentiality I have.
Yes.
To counterbalance that. And that's tremendously important, because part of the mental illness is that people self-deprecate themselves. We develop a negative narrative.
Yeah.
Basically, everybody I work with who has a mental illness has written a movie, a script in their mind, or the darkest movie. I mean, horror movie you see on the movie theater do not match what we can produce in our brain. Then the question is that's a given. Okay, that's where we operate. Then the question really is about getting out of that dynamics.
Yes. That's where, people and growth is not static. There's always movement forward, and I feel in the strength-based approach, you're focusing on not you learn from the past, but you keep moving forward when it comes to these. You don't just exist. And I feel what you're saying really speaks to me. I want to also share this one word I'm going to mess up. I don't know. Could you say this word better than me? It's from Chile.
No, I can't. I leave it to you, Robert.
Mommy, well, everyone's watching could read it. I'll put it in the notes. I'm not going to make myself look too foolish and also disrespectful for the word, but it's the description, the definition is what key. It says a silent acknowledgement and understanding between two people who are both wishing and thinking the same thing. I think this is where you're talking about in the beginning, when we're talking about sharing vulnerability, when we're able to kind of share that instead of just being silent. It inspires people to take actions in their lives. And I for one, I'm all for that. What comes to mind when you hear this word?
In 2013, I was given an antidepressant present as I was manic. And the combination, the cocktail on the antidepressant and the manic, I began, and a congregant of mine, a policeman, retired policeman, who gave me a shield, friends and family shield. Then I began policing the streets, the highways of New York. And I was arrested for impersonating a police officer. Yeah. That's a long story. But what I can tell you is that at some point, I was fired from my job. The press had a circus, a rabbi who impersonates a police officer. They baptized me as the road rage rabbi. And my life collapsed. I was fired from my job. In 14 days, I discovered I was bipolar. I was diagnosed. I didn't know. Then everything collapsed, and I was on a sofa at my home, and I was suicidal. I had strong suicidal ideations. And my friend Mark came to visit me, and he sat down next to me for hours and didn't say a word. Maybe he said, okay. So he didn't say a word. He just was there. Yeah. And his presence was the strongest gift at that moment. Yeah. That silence was pregnant with meaning. His presence, unconditional presence, kept me going. Yeah. I we know we have coffee once a week. We work together a lot, and I always tell him, I hope you understand what you did just by being there for me.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, something that people with mental illness fear, to be forgotten, to be forgotten, to be forgotten. And we need to let people with mental illness know that they are not a footnote in the cosmos. In the cosmos, they are unique gifts to humanity.
I know, hearing your story and having your friend Mark there, just be there. A lot of times, even family members, friends want to say something that will snap you out of it. This will make you feel better. Remember that time, and just being present. A lot of times, sometimes saying nothing. I really appreciate that story, because for me, it speaks a lot. It speaks volumes of how our connections matter. How just being there. You don't have to say anything. You just be there. Knowing that you're not heard is one of the most frightening things I hear when I'm in support groups and I'm with other people who are struggling, is that I don't want to be unheard. I don't want to be silenced or muffled. At the same time, they also don't want to be a burden. It's this conflicting feeling that they have of isolating and being present. And I feel it can be, but like you said, and like we've been saying, it is something that we're encouraging those who are listening, those who are watching, to find a way to move forward. We talk about strength-based, we talk about resources, we talk about all these things. I want to ask you, you shared your story here and there, so I didn't really have to ask you. You kind of shared it along the way, and I appreciate that. But when it comes to stigma, it's such a big topic. In your own experience, in your own journey, what do you think is the best way for those in the community, those in their family, whatever culture? You spoke to a lot of people. What have you seen been positive? What have you seen worked, and what definitely doesn't work?
Then, Robert, I will going to tell you something that may surprise you and the listeners. I am on the blaming ourselves for stigma. I think that people with mental illness had not made a case for themselves to society. I think that people with mental illness know about resilience, courage, bravery, hope, and darkness more than the average person. But we have not yet articulated a message to society. We have retrieved into our own victimization instead of taking a proactive stand and becoming life coaches to the world. We are the perfect life coaches. Who can talk more about life and challenges than us? But we have not yet created the channels for that. What do? We have organizations that knock on the door of politicians trying to get more things for us, which we need, and that should be done. That should be done. But that's half the way. That's why, let me tell you, in 4 months, I am coming out with a book, The Exceptional Wisdom of the Most Uncommon Minds.
I love the name. The title.
It's a book with 14 chapters. I tell you some of the chapters: uncertainty, shame, self-esteem, diagnosis, prayer, wholeness, goals. What is unique about the book, Robert, is that on every chapter there are going to be 3 links. And the reader is going to click on the link, will be sent to a dedicated website to co-write the book. And to share stories about mental health, quotes, inspiration, spirituality. And this is, the book I'm writing is an excuse to create a mental health community of wisdom. I will collect all that wisdom, and we are going to publish it on another book, which is the wisdom of the mental health community. Then that book should be available to the full society, and we should begin, at least in a small way, to begin changing the dynamics. We are going to defeat stigma when we become agents from good and add value to society. That's the key. The key is not begging. I'm not going to beg society to treat me well.
No.
I want to create a movement. Clearly, I'm ambitious, but I want to create a movement of wisdom.
Yeah.
Okay. And people who have mental illness who are listening, you need to begin shifting the paradigm. I know you're going through hell, but you must ask yourself what you are learning from that hell and what you can teach other people about going through hell, surviving, and thriving in your way. Then that book, by the way, if people go to my website, bipolarrabbi.com, then the word bipolar, then the word rabbi, no separation. You have 2 R's, bipolar rabbi, 2 B's for rabbi.com. I have a blog every week. You will get the blog. And by the way, we were talking about how to talk to somebody with mental illness. One of the blogs I wrote a couple of weeks ago was about that. Exactly about that. Okay. The last one I wrote was about self-sabotage. Then when you just sign up on the website, you're going to get the weekly newsletter, and when the book comes out, you're going to get an announcement of the book. It's going to be at a nominal price. I need to charge something because that's the way Amazon works.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be at a nominal price for everybody to get it and to be co-writer of mental health wisdom.
That's wonderful. And those who are listening, watching, all that information will be in the notes of this episode. Just go scroll down and you'll see it. So you'll have the link to go see bipolar the website, and all, like, if there's any other links, it'll be underneath in the underneath this episode, and also attached to the podcast audio version. So you'll find it, and I think it's a wonderful, ambitious goal. I commend you. You know, a lot of times it's nice to see someone with fight. You know, someone who's saying, I'm not going to grovel for you to give me peanuts because I'm struggling here. Who's going to know how to struggle, how to relate to someone struggling, someone who already has struggled? And the press made fun of me, and they called me the road rage rabbi, and newspapers in Ireland and Japan had me on the front page. I did something wrong. I told people how to drive. I didn't stop any car. I didn't touch anybody. Yeah. Okay. And they had me on the front page. And what did I do? I took the road rage rabbi and I made it into the bipolar rabbi. Okay. I didn't relinquish who I am. I said, on your face. Do you think that you're calling me that you're going to define who I am, the road rage rabbi? I have another call in life. Okay, I am the bipolar rabbi. About that, I do not apologize. I struggle, and I'm going to do something good with it. Yeah, and I feel that it's just inspiring. A lot things happen, and people are so complicated in their lives for me, even if someone I feel is struggling similar, I never say I know what they're going through, because I don't. And for me, that's how I connect, because the idea is that if we treat, and when I hear stories where someone's putting themselves out there when everyone else is saying, it's easy to be the mob effect, but I do appreciate you being ambitious enough to have this venture. I want to ask you, as we wrap up, any final thoughts you'd like to share with us today? Those listening, those hearing all this, and anything you want to share with those listening today?
Certainly, you are not alone. You may be lonely, but you're not alone. I see your value. The fact that you are going through a life that you did not choose, and that you had terrible days, and I know those days myself. And the fact that you question your life, and you feel guilty about how you affect the life of others you love.
Mm-hmm.
It is time that we come together and create a community of wisdom. We don't look for pain, but all the pain cannot go to waste.
Yeah.
That pain must be transformed into wisdom. We must be life coaches to the world. Corporations invite speakers to motivate them and pay top dollars for that. Hey, somebody who has gone through terrible schizophrenia and has done something with his life or her life should be also in the corporation circuit talking about what is to overcome challenges. Why aren't we part of that dynamics of that discourse? We had to carve a place of dignity in society. It's doable.
Mm-hmm. There was this one quote. It says, if you don't respect your time, no one else will. So those who are listening, those who are struggling, I want to say thank you, Rabbi Alfredo, for joining us with this topic. Healing our community, just like the people on it, is complex, but the reason we do it is not. We do it because we want to be better. We want to help those who need help. We want to pass on the knowledge that we learned that may help someone else. I also want to share with those, you can find all the updated information on ReviveMinistriesFL.com. Everything that was said here, all the website, every link to his book and everything will be in the notes, so you can click on it. You can check out his website and everything. I just want to say thank you again, Rabbi Alfredo, for joining us.
We say in Hebrew, Chazak, Benit Chazek. Let's be strong. Let's bring strength to each other.
Thank you so much. This is goodbye from Revive Ministries Podcast, leaving with this last quote. It's from Coretta Scott King. Timely. The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members.